Hey, and welcome back to Jay Shannon Literacy. Today, we are going to talk about reading comprehension strategies, how they are different than reading skills, and what we need to do to teach reading comprehension. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, first, let's just talk about reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is something that is a major challenge for students across the world. And for the longest, educators focus on reading, but not necessarily teaching reading comprehension strategies. And so, a lot of times, what happens is as students get older, they begin to struggle with the text because they are not receiving the strategies that are necessary to navigate that more challenging information. So, it's not that they can't read, it's just that the skills are getting more complicated, but they are not being trained on what strategies they need to use in order to navigate the more challenging text. And so there's a difference between reading comprehension strategies and reading comprehension skills. Skills show what I can do as it relates to my ability to comprehend the text. Reading comprehension strategies help me comprehend the text. So I'll give you an example. If I'm a seventh grader and I'm reading on a fourth grade level, first, let's be very clear. A seventh grader that is reading on a fourth grade level is not reading at grade level, but that student can still read. So we want to make sure that we don't use terms with students when we say things like, oh, well, you can't read. That's not true. They can read, it's just not on grade level. And so a fourth grader that reads, that is a reader. That's not an illiterate person. So when I'm not reading on grade level, it's going to be hard for me to do those grade level standards. So consider this. If you ask me to cite evidence at a fourth grade level, I can do that with no problem because I can comprehend that text. If you ask me to cite evidence at a seventh grade level, it's going to be a challenge because I can't comprehend that text. So, in order to effectively do what you're asking me to do, I have to be able to comprehend. This is where our reading strategies come in. When we are using reading strategies with students, we're chunking information, we're giving them smaller pieces, we're having them think about what they're thinking about. Metacognition, maybe visualization. What do you see as you read? Those are your reading strategies. When we're asking students to use context clues or we're asking them to cite evidence and draw conclusions, those are skills. And so today I'm going to do a quick little run through of something that you can do on a daily basis with your students to help build reading comprehension. And that is using quotes to teach reading comprehension strategies. So let's get into it. Okay, so for this activity, there is one quote that would be reviewed or analyzed for a week. And then from there, we would do several different activities. So we have the quote, and then students are paraphrasing. I want you to put it in your own words. Let me understand what you understand. The great thing about constructed response or open-ended questions is that it really helps you understand how students are processing information and where there may be gaps in understanding. And so this is the first thing that we do. What I would do is just go over the quote with the students. I would read it aloud, modeling how I'm reading it, paying attention to grammar and where to pause. I might even do a think aloud the first couple of times to make sure that they understand how to process that information. Or if I'm doing it for a different reason, maybe I am wanting this to be like a cold read so I can understand how they process it before I begin training them on how to break down the information. But at any rate, you have a quote, you have the paraphrasing, and then here I want them to do something specific to further assess the quote. And so I'm having them look at imagery and pay attention to a metaphor that's used. And then this is a standards-based question. So how does the use of imagery and metaphor impact the quote? So this would be my day one. We would have discussion about it, make sure that everyone's on the same page. We've read it, we've reread it, we're done with it for the day. 15 minutes max. The next day, my bell ringer or do now would be this next part about the author. And so this is from Johnny Depp. And so depending on, who's listening, you may or may not be familiar with Johnny Depp. Students may not be familiar with Johnny Depp. So there's a little bit of background information here about the actor, but it's also important to build additional background information so that they can effectively answer this question. So we might talk about what movies we've seen him in, or what do we know him for? Do you even know what he looks like? All those kinds of things to help students better answer the question. This is asking them, what does the quote reveal about Johnny Depp as a person? So, in order for them to answer that question, again, I have to go back to this quote. I'm thinking about what do I think this means? I'm paying attention to the wording, and then I'm going to give my answer here. These are not meant to be right or wrong answers. Instead, the goal is to understand how students are processing information, create opportunities for engagement through discussion, and they will get better as they hear their classmates and they hear you process the information. Constantly going back to this quote and reading and rereading and paying attention to the different parts, you're teaching a reading comprehension strategy. Here they make a connection. So that may be our day 3, and then this might be our day 4. And so if I'm on a block schedule, I may combine some because we're seeing each other 2 to 3 times a week, or I might just let it roll over. It doesn't have to end at a specific point. If I'm doing a 5-day schedule, on the 5th day, we might do something different, or we could start a new quote. It's up to you. But this activity is one way. This is an example of how you can use quotes to help teach reading comprehension. So I hope you found that information to be helpful. Using quotes to teach reading comprehension is really just a good way to chunk information, chunk the strategy down, so that when students get to a larger text, they understand how to take pieces and break it down so that they can better comprehend the overall text. And so the quotes don't have to be limited to quotes that you come up with. In fact, I encourage you to have students bring in their own quotes, have them bring their song lyrics, because that is going to create more engagement. Now, you may have to filter some of those song lyrics out, or you might have to give some parameters, but understand that this is more important than something that you might agree with. It's more about their ability to become critical thinkers, and the best way to do that is to become very literate in where they need to be so that they can be successful individuals. So reading comprehension strategies aid in reading comprehension so that students can take the skills necessary at their level and apply them to show mastery. And so we want to make sure that we're giving kids every opportunity to build on their strategies. I really like the quotes because it's short, it's quick, it's to the point, and it creates repetition, and it sets up a system, if you will, and students begin to develop habits so that they can take those skills and transfer them not only in ELA, but in other content areas and in their personal life. So I hope you found this video helpful today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.